Hi there, it's Damien. I'm going to be doing Bible study today. I'm going to start in the book of Genesis. In Jewish circles, there's what they call the weekly Torah portion readings. They go through the whole first 5 books of Moses in a year, per week, every week. And each section is called a Parasha. And so it started a long time ago. They're like in the middle of the book of Exodus right now. But I'm just going to go ahead and do my own little video discourse on certain sections. I'm not even going to go through for the whole thing. But usually what they'll do is in a synagogue service, they'll read the whole of the parasha. And then they'll give a sermon on what is in there, relating to that. In fact, the book of Genesis, the first parasha, covers chapter 1 all the way through to chapter 6, so that's a lot of ground to cover. And I don't think one could preach on the whole thing. So I'm going to just pick the first section. So, in the beginning, I'm going to read it first, actually. I'm just going to read what I'm about to be speaking on. I'm going to be reading from the complete Jewish version of the Bible, a translation by David H. Stern, a Messianic Jew who currently lives in Israel. I love this version of the Bible because I do. I find it just a very excellent English translation with all the Hebrew transliterations for places and names and certain concepts. So I really enjoy that because it kind of brings you back to the Jewish roots. I'm really a fan of that recently. So, Parasha Beresheet. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was unformed and void. Darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the surface of the water. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light, and God saw that the light was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So there was evening, and there was morning one day. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the middle of the water, let it divide water from water." And God made the dome and divided the water under the dome from the water above the dome, and that is how it was. God called the dome sky. So there was evening and there was morning, a second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered into one place, and let dry land appear," and that is how it was. So God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the water he called seas, and God saw that it was good. God said, "Let the earth put forth grass, seed-producing plants, and fruit trees, each yielding its own kind of seed-bearing fruit on the earth." And that is how it was. The earth brought forth grass, plants, each yielding its own kind of seed, and trees, each producing its own kind of seed-bearing fruit. And God saw that it was good. So there was evening, and there was morning, a third day. God said, "Let there be lights in the dome of the sky to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years. And let them be for lights in the dome of the sky to give light on the earth." And that is how it was. God made the 2 great lights, the larger light to rule the day, the smaller light to rule the night, and the stars. God put them in the dome of the sky to give light to the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So there was evening and there was morning, a fourth day. And God said, "Let the water swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly in the open dome of the sky." God created the great sea creatures, otherwise in other translations, the great crocodiles, dinosaurs, and every kind of winged bird. And God saw that it was good. Then God said that God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the waters of the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." So there was evening and there was morning, a 5th day. God said, "Let earth bring forth living creatures." Let me repeat that. Let the earth bring forth living creatures. Each kind of livestock, crawling animal, wild beast. And that is how it was. So God made each kind of wild beast, each kind of livestock, and every kind of animal that crawls along the ground, and God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image and in our likeness. Let them rule over the fish of the sea, and the birds in the air, and the animals, and over all the earth, and over every crawling creature that crawls on the earth. So God created humankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them. God said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, and every living creature that crawls on the earth." Then God said, "Here, throughout the whole earth I'm giving you as food every seed-bearing plant, and every tree with seed-bearing fruit, and to every wild animal, the birds in the air, the creature crawling on the earth, in which there is a living soul, I am giving as food every kind of green plant." And that is how it was. God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So there was evening and there was morning, a sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished along with everything in them. And on the seventh day God was finished with his work, with which he had made. So he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and separated it as holy, because on that day God rested from all the work which he had created, so that itself could produce. Here's the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created. On the day Adonai God made the earth and the heaven, there was as yet no wild bush on the earth, and no wild plant had as yet sprung up, for Adonai God had not caused it to rain on the earth. And no wild plant had as yet sprung up, for Adonai God had... It didn't rain. Rather, a mist went up from the earth, which watered the entire surface of the ground. Then Adonai God formed a person, in Hebrew Adam, from the dust of the ground, Hebrew Adama, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, so that he became a living being. So God formed Adam from the Adama, and he became a living being. And Adonai God planted a garden toward the east in a place called Eden, and there he put the person whom he had formed. Out of the ground, Adonai God caused to grow every tree pleasing in appearance and good for food, including the tree of life in the middle of the garden and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out from Eden to water the garden, and from there divided into 4 streams. The name of the first is Pishon. It winds through the land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Aromatic resin and onyx stone are also found there. The name of the second river is Gihon. It winds throughout the land of Cush. The name of the third river is Tigris, and the one that flows toward the east of Asher. And the fourth river is Euphrates. Adonai God took the person and put him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and care for it. Adonai God gave the person this order: "You may freely eat from every tree in the garden except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You are not to eat from it, because on the day you eat from it, it will become certain that you will die." Adonai God said, "It isn't good that the person should be alone. I will make a companion suitable for helping him." So from the ground, Adonai God formed every wild animal and every bird that flies in the air, and he brought them to the person to see what he would call them. Whatever the person would call each living creature, that was to be its name. So the person gave names to all the livestock, to the birds in the air, to every wild animal. But for Adam, there was not found a companion suitable for helping him. Then God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the person, and while he was sleeping, he took one of his ribs and closed up the place from which he took it with flesh. And the rib which Adonai God had taken from the person, he made a woman person, and he brought her to the man person. And the man person said, "At last, this is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She is to be called women," Hebrew Isha, because she was taken out of man, in Hebrew Ish. So Isha was taken out of Ish. "This is why man is to leave his father and mother and stick with his wife, and they are to be one flesh," Echad flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. Now the serpent was more crafty than any wild animal which Adonai God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say you were not to eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman answered the serpent, "You are not to eat from, we may eat from the trees in the garden, but the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, God said you are not neither to eat from it nor to touch it, or you will die." The serpent said to the woman, "It is not true that you will surely die, because God knows that knowing good, because God knows that from the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. Well, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and had a pleasing appearance, and the tree was desirable for making one wise, she took some of its fruit and ate. And she gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. And the eyes of both of them were open. They realized that they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together to make for themselves loincloths. Now get this. Then they heard the voice of Adonai, God, walking in the garden at the time of the evening breeze. So the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Adonai, from Adonai God, among the trees in the garden. Adonai God called to the man, "Where are you?" And he answered, "I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself." And he said, "Who told you you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree from which I ordered you not to eat?" The man replied, "The woman you gave to be with me, she gave me fruit from the tree and I ate." Adonai God said to the woman, "What is this you have done?" The woman answered, "The serpent, he tricked me, so I ate." Adonai God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, you are cursed more than all livestock and all wild animals, and you will crawl on your belly and eat the dust as long as you live. I will put animosity between you and the woman, between her descendant and your descendant, and he will bruise your heel. He will bruise your head, and you will bruise his heel." And to the woman he said, "I will greatly increase your pain in childbirth. You will bring forth children in pain. Your desire will be towards your husband, but he will rule over you." To Adam he said, "Because you listened to what your wife said, and ate from the tree which I gave you order, do not eat from it. The ground is now cursed on your account. You will work hard to eat from it as long as you live. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat field plants. You will eat bread by the sweat of your forehead until you return to the ground, for you were taken out of it. You are dust, and you will return to the dust." The man called his wife Havva, meaning life, because she was the mother of all the living. And Adonai God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. Adonai God said, "See, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Now, to prevent his putting out his hand, and taking also from the tree of life, eating and living forever." Therefore Adonai God sent him out of the garden of Eden to cultivate the ground from which he was taken. So he drove the man out, and he placed at the east of the garden of Eden the cherubim and a flaming sword, which turned in every direction to guard the way to the tree of life. I will end there for this section. There's a lot there. And there's a lot of things that could be totally expounded upon. And there's a couple things I really want to touch on, though. Okay, number one, a guy named John Lennox. He's got a double doctorate or triple doctorate or something. He's crazy smart scientist. Wrote a book called 7 Days That Divide the World. And he treats this topic really well. But the first thing I want to present is the whole, what does the Bible say about creation in regards to, is evolution right? Is it a 6-day creation? Is it a 6 billion year creation? What's going on? Did God go poof and it happened, or was it created over a period of time? The Bible is interesting. If you want to read it for what it says, even literally, okay? Let's take a look. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Stop there. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the original language, Beresheet bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. It could be said, in the beginning of God's creating heaven and earth. So there's this idea like a snapshot at what was happening at that time. So it's not like, I now start. Because if you look at the text, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu ve'hoshech al panei tehom. It's in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, or in the beginning of God's creation of heaven and earth. The earth was unformed and void, darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the surface of the waters. So before God even, and then it goes, and then God said, "Let there be light." What happens before he says, "Let there be light"? He's already created heavens and earth. Earth is a bucket of water. it's void, it's devoid of life. In Rashi's commentary on Genesis, he says it's exceedingly empty and exceedingly lifeless. There's like an astonishment that it's talking about. It's like, it's wiped clean, it's a clean slate, it's empty, it's void, there's nothing. And so there was this chaotic state. There was water, there was this globe, and the Spirit of God was like hovering over the surface of the water, and like just vibrating, brooding over the surface of the water before God says anything. So when we talk about a 6-day creation, that God spoke the world into existence in 6 days, well, the account actually says that heavens and earth and the Spirit of God hovering over the globe were present before he said anything. So, first of all, time-wise, we don't know how long the earth and the heavens, the universe, like the stars and all that kind of stuff, were present before God said, let there be light. We have the heavens and the earth just there at the beginning of the account. So, a 6-day creation, literally, according to the text, there's something wrong with that, because it doesn't say so. It says it's present before he says anything. So there's this idea of like, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe what I'm reading. But it's not like when God started, here's how he started. I said, let there be light, and there was heavens and earth. It doesn't seem to go that way. It seems to just give a snapshot. There seems to be snapshot pictures of what's going on. Heavens and earth. God is there, the Spirit's there. This is the kind of set scene in the beginning of all your stuff, everything related to humanity. The earth is present, the heavens are present, the Spirit of God hovering. God said, let there be light, and there was light. And there was evening and there was morning on the first day, which is like Vahi erev, vahi voker yom echad. Echad is the same as the two will become one flesh. Echad, it's a compound one. It's like the English one, in the sense of, depending on the context, it can mean a singular one, it can be the one people, one nation, one language. So it depends on the context, and sometimes the context isn't clear. So it's interesting it says echad. Why I wouldn't say yahid instead? Why not just single day, first day, most important day? But it's like just one day, just a day. It's a day. But it didn't say 24-hour period because the sun wasn't there yet. Not necessarily. We don't know. It just, there's no mention of a sun. There's no mention of a 24-hour period. It happens. Okay, let there be light. It doesn't even say that the light is the sun. It just says, let there be light. Almost like a worker saying, I'm going to shine light on the situation before I can do something. I mean, when an electrician walks into a house to wire a house, the lights aren't there yet. And yet he needs light to work on the lights. And so it's interesting. I personally think it's God's presence, his glory, because it says God dwells in unapproachable light. I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. If God dwells in unapproachable light, he is the light. It says in the book of Revelation, there's going to be no more moon and no more sun, because it is the light of Adonai himself that illuminates the city. So, I mean, it often refers to God being so bright, he's like lightning. That's a no-brainer to me. Let there be light, poof, God's light is just, he is the light. That's how I see it. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead because we read it. Day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just evening and morning, day 1. Evening, morning, day 2. Evening. So it keeps going like that. Now, interesting thing. When it says Vayhi erev, vayhi voker, erev being evening, voker or boker meaning day or morning, it has this underlying idea of chaos, erev, chaos, boker, order. So there's this underlying idea in the word of chaos to order. So these are just hints, like little interesting hints to me. There was chaos and there was order. Things were chaotic and they became more ordered. Day 1, more chaos, or like chaos became more orderly. Day 2, chaos more orderly. Day 3, chaos more orderly. Day 4. So there's this idea that the material world was in existence, and then God decided to start to speak things into more increasing order. Now, it's not to say that the universe was eternally existent, because it says in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. But it's not saying how long it existed before God started to really refine the earth to make it habitable for human beings. This is kind of what I'm getting from the text. Now, going to beginning of chapter 2, okay? I think it's beginning of chapter 2. Yeah, chapter 2, verse 4, okay? Here is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created. Another translation translates more literally, here are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. On the day that Adonai God made the earth and heaven. Okay, so this is messed up. We had, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then God said. So we don't know how long the heavens and the earth were there for. They were just present at the beginning of the account. God starts to speak. Things start to happen on this little watery globe. Dry land appears, trees, animals, humans, etc. And then it says, here's the generations of the heavens and the earth when God created them in the day, the single day that God created them. So here we have an infinite idea of time. Then we have specific day 1 through 6 and 7. And then we have generations. And then it says God did all this in a day. Which day is it? Okay? Did God create the heavens and the earth in 6 days and rest on the 7th? Did he create the heavens and have the globe sometime and then he refined the earth in 6 days? Was the crust of the earth infinite? Like, we don't know how far into the past it was, and then he decided, okay, I'm just going to reshape this thing and make it habitable. This part is a mystery. Because God speaks to Job. Were you there when I founded the heavens and the earth? When I scribed it? When I did all? You weren't there. Nobody was there. There seems to be a thought process. There seems to be process here. This doesn't seem to be God saying, happen, happen, happen. Although being God, this stuff can happen like that. It just doesn't seem to be what the scripture is indicating if I'm reading it for what it says. I'm led to conclude that there's tension. I'm a person who sees things in tension. It seems to be that in the mind of God, poof, in one day this can happen. Like, because God says to Abraham, I have made you a father of many nations. Like, to God, when he thinks it, it's already done. So in the day that God created the heavens and the earth was to him, yeah, I did it today, done. I have made the heavens and the earth. To him, it could be, I have made the heavens and the earth in 6 days. I'm not saying that it's a play on words. I'm not really trying to go there. I'm not trying to say it's all metaphor, that it didn't really happen. I believe it's factual that God actually did create the heavens and the earth. I do think he did hover over the surface of the water. Then he said, let there be light. And there was a certain process to things happening. But the fact that there's something without time attached to it, then time begins to get attached to it, then it's all like generations, and then it's a day. This is the kind of thing that leads me to go, it's poetic. I would say it's poetic and factual, not metaphorical and abstract. It's not like, oh, it's just a metaphor for something. No, it's talking about creation. It's talking about what God actually does and how he worked it. And whether it's exactly chronological is questionable. I don't think it's chronological. It doesn't say chronology is like this, because the way I see the Eastern mindset, like a Jewish mindset, I am not Jewish, okay? I'm a Canadian in 2014. I am so far removed from the original text and the original culture. It's absurd. But I know one thing. The way people think in the East and the way people think in the West, the way the Jews thought and the way the Greeks thought, two different kinds of things. I am obviously a very Greek-oriented thought process guy. This happens, then this. It's very chronological, it's very linear, it's very structured, and this has to happen, and this has to happen, this has to happen. I think the Eastern mind, especially the ancient Eastern mind, a lot more poetic, a lot more artistic, a lot more conceptual, because they don't necessarily think in this happens, then this happens, then this happens. They seem to think in snapshot. Get that picture? Okay, good. Snapshot. Get that idea? Yeah, okay. Get this concept? And then they take concepts It's this conceptual idea. There's not this linear, consecutive, chronological thing. It's just concepts, ideas. And once you grasp this idea, take this idea, it's great. Yeah, internalize that, live that out. Take this idea, get it, internalize that, live that out. That seems to be how the Bible is written. That seems to be how they thought. And they don't necessarily think this plus this plus this plus this. You even get that when it begins to talk about God creating heavens and earth, day 1 through 6, etc. Then it says, here's the history. On the day God made heaven and earth, then there was as yet no wild bush on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung. Wait a minute. Are we recreating earth again? Because then it goes, it's not good for the man to be alone. I'll make him a companion suitable for helping him. So God, from the ground, formed every wild animal. Oh, we already did that. He created the animals before he created the person, and now he's recreating? It seems like that, but no. What we're getting is two creative, like, two snapshots. Here's like a generalized. Let's refine it a little bit and retell it again. It's almost like reinforcing the concept. God created. Okay, let's refine that. This is how he was doing it, a little more detailed. Okay, and he's just, it's sort of like taking ideas from different places and putting them on the picture. So that's why I cannot read the creation account of Genesis with any sort of chronological certainty. And so if anybody's going to be super dogmatic about it has to be a 6-day creation or else you're unbiblical, then they're not reading their Bible. The Bible isn't it's not chronological. It's not going there. It's not going to give you that. And I'm not trying to be dogmatic about, I'm not in the camp of theistic evolution. I'm not in the camp of 6-day creationism. I'm not in that camp. I'm neither. I'm just a student of the Bible, reading the Bible in the original language and the English and French and whatever I can gather to try and build what is the Bible telling me and what is it not telling me. What the Bible isn't telling me is a timeline. It's not giving me a direct timeline. It's giving me snapshots. It's giving me a picture. It's giving me, yes, God made the heavens and the earth. Get this idea. God made human beings in his image and likeness. Get this idea. God, how he connected him, the man and his wife together, get this idea. God made humankind to rule over the fish and get this idea. This is what I'm seeing in the text. I'm going to carry on. So with that said, if a person comes along and says, well, what about evolution? God can't be real. I'm like, the Bible doesn't disqualify evolution because it says, let the earth bring forth plants, let the earth bring forth living creatures. It says both. Well, wait, whoa, what? I thought God did, but then again, God did do it because it says, and this is how God created the beasts of the field. Let the earth do it. Oh, beasts, and God says God made the beasts of the field. Well, who did it? Was it the earth or was it God? I'm sort of confused here. This is the picture. This is the snapshot. It seems to me that God has saw fit to so immerse himself into our reality that he uses the material world to make and shape and interact and even redeem the material world. He uses human beings to write a book to tell humanity about an invisible, transcendent God, and he uses a system of religion and humanity to introduce sacrificial systems and project ideas about a Messiah, and then God incarnates in the flesh, and Jesus the Messiah, ultimate incarnation. God incarnates himself. I don't know why. When it says that the earth brought forth life and then God made the beasts of the field, that's exactly what happened. God made the beasts of the field. How? The earth brought forth life. That's what my text is telling me. I can't escape it. So somebody can say, well, what if evolution is right? I'm like, what if? But what if he did it in 6 days? What if? What if? What if both? See, Gerald Schroeder, I didn't necessarily agree with him all the time, but he wrote a book called The Science of God. He says basically from God's perspective or creation's perspective looking forward, it took 6 days. From the created order's perspective looking backwards to creation, it took 16 billion years. I'm okay with that. I can hold that tension. I don't know why, but I'm cool with that. If somebody's going to be like, well, I believe just in 6 days, I'm fine with that. Oh, sure. Well, I believe in evolution. Sure, I can go with that too. Why does it have to matter? Why does it have to be a point of contention? One thing I know, God did it, God made it, that settles it. I don't care how. Because that's not my bent. I'm a human being with a 3-pound piece of meat and neurology between my 2 ears. I'm not going to get it. I just know one thing. God has revealed enough that I need to care about, and then he's left the rest out to say, hey, that's my stuff. Cool. I'm cool. I don't have to get bent out of shape about evolution. Because I know one thing. Evolution couldn't happen without God anyway. It cannot be sustained without God. God has to exist for evolution to work. That's my bet. I see that way. I don't think evolution can work without God. But I'm not jumping on the evolution bandwagon. I'm not jumping on creationism bandwagon. I'm just going to say, hey, I'm a guy who can be comfortable in the tension. God did it. I don't know exactly how he did it. He gives little hints, snapshots here and there. That's it. All right, just trying to see something. Now, what I really wanted to get to, my thing I caught today when I was reading that just totally got me loving it. Okay, I believe that Jesus the Messiah, the incarnate Son of God, has shown himself throughout all of the scriptures. So that when he said that he showed up to the disciples on the road to Emmaus, saying from Genesis to the end of the Tanakh, all the writings of Moses and the prophets, he basically showed them where he was. This is what the Bible says about me. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless, void, Spirit of God hovering over the surface of the water, and God said. He said something. His voice carried forward. And then, here's what's so cool for me. Human beings are on the earth. The devil disguised as a serpent, questions the authority of the word of God, gets them to eat the fruit that they were not allowed to eat. They did. And then a guilty conscience kicks in. And then they're afraid. Here's something interesting. They heard, this is chapter 3, verse 8. They heard the voice of Adonai, God, walking in the garden at the time of the evening breeze. And so the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Adonai God among the trees of the garden. That is an interesting sentence. I'm sorry for the whole broken English part. I'm just trying to get this emphasis here. They heard the voice of Adonai God walking in the garden at the time of the evening breeze. They heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden. How do you hear a voice walking? I believe that's the first theophany. The first God becoming incarnate and fleshing himself in humanity. These kind of snapshots are throughout the whole of the Bible. A man or an angel coming in a fleshly form, be it glorified or otherwise, visibly, tangibly, touchable, seeable. You can speak, you can hear, you interact. He could eat. The voice of the Lord was walking in the garden, the same voice that created the heavens and the earth. And it says they hid from the presence. How can you hide from the presence of this voice? Is the voice a presence? According to the Bible, it is. And they hid because they heard the sound of the voice of God walking. How does a voice walk? The first theophany in the Bible blows my mind. I love it. It's possible that because he come to the evening breeze, is it possible that God clothed himself in a sort of a human flesh to interact with Adam and Eve at the evening breeze? Is it possible that they talked and walked with God himself because he came and he condescended to their level and became a figure that they could grasp? Did Jesus walk and talk with Adam and Eve? I don't know. But my guess is yes. Because the angel of the Lord, every time that's mentioned in the Bible, people take that as a prefigurative messianic incarnation. The voice of the Lord seems to be talked about throughout the Bible as this messenger that goes sent on divine mission and fulfills his mission. Here, the voice of the Lord is said to be walking. The voice of the Lord is interacted with. They fear its presence. The voice of the Lord has an embodiment somehow. And later on in the book of Colossians, it says the word of the Lord Jesus, he's the one by whom all of creation came about. And God says, let there be light. God spoke, let there be light, and there was light. So there's the first theophany in the Bible is they heard the voice of the Lord walking in the garden. Now that just blows my mind. I love that. I just love that. I don't know why, but I love that. I get excited when I see stuff like that because they're hints, prefigurative ideas about snapshots of the Messiah, of God in the flesh coming and dwelling among his people. You see, God is unapproachable in his perfectly glorious form. He is so great, it says he dwells in unapproachable light. No man can see God and live. No man can see his face and live. And yet there's an idea that people saw him. So we are now, that's pretty much the point I wanted to get to in this section. That the Bible does not necessarily give a chronological idea. It's almost poetic. There seems to be this poetic imagery splashing across the pages of the creation account to give you factual information that God did indeed do things, and he did things in a certain way, he did them orderly, but the whole emphasis is on God spoke and something happened. And God spoke and something happened. And then, so this is the idea, this poetic idea of when God speaks, something is powerful in his speech. But that very speech has embodied itself so that they could hear the voice of God walking in the garden. This is mind-blowing jump, man. Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God, the eternal Son of God, through whom all creation came, is the very one who spoke the worlds into existence, and the very one whose voice was heard walking in the garden. This is the kind of stuff that I just love. I love this stuff. So that's my my little preach today on the book of Genesis, chapter 1 to 4. But that's how we go. Anyway, I'm going to cut that for today, and we'll revisit on another day. I hope you enjoyed, because I enjoyed talking it.